Welcome everyone to the Speaking Part 5 Comparing and Persuading Analysis. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that I'm here in the Speaking Part 5 section of the CELPIP library. And Speaking Part 5 focuses more on lower levels, 5, 6. What does that mean? Well, that means that lower levels, 5, 6, you need to do well in this part, or you can do well in this part. This part is not so complicated, the same as part 2, 3, 4. These parts, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are very important for lower levels because you need to demonstrate your 5, 6 English knowledge in these parts, okay? For example, in this part, we're going to do some comparatives, and I'll show you that later. Now, for higher levels, what does it mean that this part is more for lower levels? Well, it means that higher levels, you can't really demonstrate, or the complexity of the question is not as difficult as part 1, 6, or 7. Those parts are the parts where levels 7 or higher, they need to do well in those parts to really demonstrate that knowledge. And part 5, it's not so complicated. But at the same time, we're going to develop an answer that can really demonstrate your knowledge even in part 5, okay? So keep that in mind. Also, there's this really great tips and strategies video for part 5. That video you can find in our playlist, part 5 playlist. And also there'll be a link in the description box to that video. Okay? So now let's get started with today's analysis from volume number 1, block noise. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so here we have the question. All right. Now, I do want to say that in our example here, we have already made our selection. We have already made our selection, and we've already gotten our colleague's choice. Okay? Because in the real exam, it's a little bit different. And let me show you. So, in the real exam, first you have 3 parts. First, you choose an option, then you have preparation time, and then you have the speaking time. So what does that mean? So here we have our question. The people in your apartment building are upset with the traffic noise from the street, and as a member of your apartment's council, you need to solve the problem. You find 2 suitable options. Using the pictures and information below, choose the option that you prefer, this option or that option. In the next section, you will need to persuade your colleague that your choice is the better choice. Okay? So then, when we have these options, you're given 1 minute to choose the option that you prefer. Either one is good. There's no right or wrong choice. But I would say maybe you should pick the one that you feel more familiar with. Maybe the planting a hedge, you read that, it looks more familiar. Or what about building a brick wall? Now you only have 60 seconds or 1 minute. And after that, you have your choice here. And then the computer gives you your colleague's choice, okay? And it says your colleague is suggesting another option. Persuade her that the option you chose is more suitable by comparing the 2. Okay? And so you can see here that you have a minute to prepare, and then after that minute you start speaking. Now, here we chose building a brick wall, okay? But let's go back and let's say you chose planting a hedge. And after the minute is over, you see, here's your choice, planting a hedge. And here is buying everyone earplugs. Okay? Okay, so you can see that now we're back here on my board. And we can see that we have our choice and we have our colleague's choice, okay? But it's the same question. Let me read that question again. The people in your apartment building are upset with the traffic noise from the street. Okay, so everyone's upset, too noisy, traffic noise, lots of traffic. Yes, that can make you upset. Okay, and as a member of your apartment's council, okay, so you're a member of the apartment's council, you need to solve the problem. Okay, so remember we had two suitable options. Okay, we chose planting a hedge. And now we need to persuade our colleague, convince our colleague that our choice, planting a hedge, is more suitable for this issue. Okay? All right. Now, also, before we get started with that analysis, I do want to remind you that I'm going to be following some of the tips and strategies from our guide. Particularly, I'm going to try to use comparative language or make some ideas using comparative language. That will be very important, okay? Also, I'm going to be organizing and I'm going to be providing a complete response, okay? Particularly, I'm going to be trying to follow this organization template. It's very good for higher levels, okay? Higher levels, we need to try to organize. This is what demonstrates the highest level the most. How well organized you are and how much you can control your speaking and your ideas. Because controlled speaking in a given time shows the knowledge of the student, okay? That's basically that's the rule, the basic rule. So that's why we only are given 1 minute to speak. And during that 1 minute, let's try to organize or follow some kind of organizational template. It's not to say this one is the only one. No, there are many. But I find this one to be easier. And you'll see here that we're going to start like this. Then we're going to try to give an idea and compare it to the other side using these forms, okay? So let's get started. Okay, let me move over to my board. Okay. All right, so first we want to introduce the question. That's what we're going to do first. And we are building 7-9. Don't forget, everyone. 7-9 is what we're building. Okay, here we go. If I had to persuade my apartment council colleague to choose planting the hedge over buying everyone earplugs, I'd make some convincing points. Okay, starting indirectly also is a higher level, more general. Indirect meaning if I had to persuade. Okay, we could start directly. We could say, hello, council member, or hello, colleague, or you can even say a name. Hello, Tom, or hello, Brenda. I'd like to persuade you to choose my choice over your choice, or I'd like to persuade you as to why planting a hedge would be much better than buying everyone earplugs. So we can do that. We can do that, okay? Uh, again, I think indirect is stronger. Okay, I'd make some convincing points. All right, and we were clear about planting the hedge to choose planting the hedge over buying everyone earplugs. All right, let's move on. Our first idea. Okay, this is important. Let's look at our idea here. Let's see what it says. First and most importantly, I'd say that nowadays, many citizens are concerned about the environment. So our tenants would really appreciate the fact that it's more environmentally friendly. Okay, so what did I do there? Before I look at that again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be trying to say something about why every part that it says here, environmentally friendly, looks green and appealing, costs $3,000, takes 5 years to grow high enough to block the noise. Why this, I'm going to try to say why these ideas are better than these ones. You could imagine your own ideas, that would be okay, but they give us these for a reason. And the reason is we need to try to say why these factors are better than these factors. Okay? So let's keep that in mind. Okay, so that's why over here I'm saying I'd say that so our tenants would really appreciate the fact that it's more environmentally friendly, or we can say the hedge, planting a hedge is more environmentally friendly. We could say that one. I didn't say it here. So that's a good idea to start. Using the fact that I put it here in purple, I usually put phrases or expressions in purple. Okay. And using the fact that it's a good way to explain something. Okay. Now, I've said it's more environmentally friendly. Our tenants would appreciate that. Now, I need to try and say something about this side. Okay. Let's see what I can say. However, the earplugs could add to the littering problem. Okay, littering. Littering is not environmentally friendly. Littering, throwing garbage on the street. Since tenants could be tempted to just throw them out. Mhm. We can say here, throw them out on the yard or on the street. And we know that they will, well, tempted to just throw them out. This tempted, sometimes when you carry small pieces of something, you just throw them out on the sidewalk. I try not to do that, but sometimes I don't know why. I get tempted. That's what it means. I don't want to do it, but I feel like I do it sometimes. Because small pieces of garbage like that, and that's littering. So that's what it says here. It says here that the earplugs, they could cause or make the littering problem stronger. Okay? And could be tempted. Now that's a good use of passive modal. Could be tempted. Not to say he tempted, he can tempt, or she can tempt you, or that one, but rather tenants could be tempted. We don't know by who or by what. Okay, so it's passive. All right, so in general, good idea. All right, I don't feel it's so strong, but it does explain the first factor about environmentally friendly. It does say that and explain why it's better than the earplugs. Okay, so what do we have next? Let's look. Secondly, I'd say that since it looks green, it would be much more attractive and would provide that extra natural element we've been looking for. Okay, so first it looks green, green and appealing, attractive. Mm-hmm. And we've been looking for a natural element, something to make our apartment look natural. Okay, so that's a good idea as well. Now, we need to try and say something about the other side now. We said ours is much more attractive. It'll provide us a natural element. So, what about the other side? And also, just I want to say something here about we've been looking for. All right. Present perfect continuous means we've been looking for something. We've been looking from the past until now. We've been looking to make our apartment building look more natural. Okay. So that's good. What are we going to say about the other side? But, while the earplugs would be much more uncomfortable and annoying since you'd always have to put them on. It could literally become a pet peeve. Okay, very interesting here. Very interesting. So again, we're saying something about the earplugs. It's not really here, many colors. Well, portable and easy to use and replace. I think that kind of explains about we'd have to put them on, okay? Now, what it is saying here is this daily routine or this action, this habit of having to put earplugs in your ear could be uncomfortable and also annoying. So that's the first part. I agree. Okay, we're at home, let me put on my earplugs. No, this can be annoying, right? Why are we doing this? So that's what it's trying to emphasize here. Now, so much more uncomfortable and annoying, all right? You'd always have to put them on. And then it says here this phrase. This phrase is interesting. Now, it's in purple for several reasons. First, because of it, we're talking about this habit of putting the earplugs daily, putting them into your ears, okay? Now, we could say it could become annoying. It could become a problem. Pet peeve. A pet peeve is something that you think is annoying, something that annoys you or irritates you. For example, some people don't like squeaky sounds, or some people don't like some kind of taste or smell. Whatever, something that really annoys you, that's a pet peeve. Okay. And that's an expression. All right. And that's why this one here is in purple. Now, this literally, I put that there, literally has become a very common way of expressing these days. It's very common. I don't know if you watch other videos or not, or even shows in English, but you'll notice that lots of people are using literally way more than in the past. So much so that it's become a way of expressing things in spoken English. It's kind of like the new way of expressing, new lingo, new form of speaking. If you use literally, wow, you can use literally. It's literally the best way to speak. You see? So, literally, that's a really good way to express something. Literally. So, here it's saying that this example here, this annoying habit, this daily thing of putting earplugs into your ear to stop the noise, it could literally become a pet peeve. Like, really. Okay? So, very good way of expressing there. I like that use. Now, Um, I would say that this idea is much stronger than the first idea, but I see some similarities that we should already be keeping in mind. First, we're using our um, factors here, okay, our reasons, we're using them, we're saying something about them. That's very important. And then I also see here that we're using a comparative. The comparatives are in green here, everyone. Comparatives. And comparatives for lower levels is so important, but also for us higher levels. We need to show that that's what we're trying to utilize here to explain ourselves better. And then also, if you notice something that higher levels do, I've already been doing in these two examples, which is using a lot of modals, right? Would appreciate, could add, could be tempted, would be much more, would provide, would be, would always have to. Modal use is something that higher levels do well when they're trying to explain or give advice, okay? So you need to literally literally let that become a habit. Literally. And then the last thing, of course, is that I'm using these kind of, well, I've used two expressions here so far, a pet peeve and literally, and the fact that. So already I'm seeing here a high level, okay? But, and also I want to say that this could be enough. This could be enough even for 9. Now, I want to challenge you. I want to give you more ideas. I want to give you more structure. And that's why I'm going to add another idea, okay? Because it can literally be done, or I can do it. And also, we need to learn, okay? So that's why I'm going to add another idea. And we do have several points here that we can use and use to compare. So let's see what we have. Last but not least, I think the icing on the cake. Now, I've used this icing on the cake before, and I use it almost as a template. I didn't put it in our template, but I think this is a really great expression to use when you're trying to convince someone about something. And I've said that before, and I've used it in our previous examples. Lots of good examples there. And the icing on the cake means the best part. So I think the icing on the cake is that. Also, we're using although here. I'm going to explain that. Although the hedge could be more costly in the short term, it would end up being more cost effective in the long term. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Now, so it's saying here that in the short term, the planting a hedge costs $3,000. Okay. In the short term, it's a lot more expensive. You see, we're using that comparative. Okay. Costly, stronger word than expensive. But it says here it would end up being more cost effective in the long term. Okay. And why is that? We need to explain that here. So, more cost effective in the long term. So, in the short term, the hedge could be more costly. Okay. But cost effective means a better price or can reduce cost. It can reduce whatever we paid. So, how is that? Let's see. One second here before we go to that part. I want to say that that's why we use the contrasting phrase, although. So instead of putting but here, we start with although. This is called a contrasting clause. and we're contrasting. The contrasting phrase or sentence is in the start of the sentence. We could say it would end up being more cost effective in the long term, although the hedge could be more costly in the short. We could say that, but it's better when you start with although, okay? So we said that there. Now we're going to add another point. Sorry, here. No. While we'd always have to buy those pesky earplugs. Oh, I like it. Pesky. Annoying. Pesky. Pesky is an adjective that means something that annoys you as well. Pesky. It's pesky. It's annoying. We can say insects are pesky. Flies, mosquitoes, and probably on a weekly basis. So the costs will eventually have surpassed the hedges further down the road. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, let me just put this one here. Okay. So let's look at that first. First, we said that it's going to be more cost effective in the long term. And then we're making a comparison to the earplugs. We're saying that the earplugs will, in the long term, we're comparing in the long term or further down the road. Another good phrase. At some point in the future, the costs of the earplugs will eventually have surpassed. Okay, future perfect. Future perfect here. Will have surpassed. And why are we using future perfect? Well, we're using future perfect first because we can. Okay? We're saying from now and a period into the future. By that period, the costs will have surpassed by some period further down the road by that time. So we can use future perfect. I'll give you a simple example just to illustrate. By next year, I will have passed the CELPIP exam with level 9, for example. By next year. Okay? So we're saying here, by some point in the future, the costs of the earplugs will eventually have surpassed the hedges. Okay? That's what this one means here. This one. Okay, very strong to finish off. Very, very strong. And that's what I want to say here. What do we have strong? Well, in this, it's actually the same as the previous ones, previous examples. We used similar formatting, okay? We used a similar form of describing things. First, we said something about hours. We used comparative language. We were talking about the cost, okay? And then we said something negative about the other one. And we did that in each example. What's good? What's not good about the other one? What's good? What's not good about the other one? What's good? What's not good about the other one? That comparing and that contrasting is the structure that we used. And that's what we need to try to use to describe this picture more effectively, okay? Or to convince our colleague, to compare and persuade, okay? Secondly, we used, or in every idea, we used strong comparative form. Okay, more attractive, much more uncomfortable and annoying, more costly, more cost effective. Okay. Thirdly, we used stronger grammatical form. Are concerned, could be tempted, passive voice, would appreciate, could add, would be much, would provide, would have to put, would end up, all the way to the end. And then we used modals all the way to the end. And then we added some other phrases, present perfect continuous, we've been looking for. Okay. Will have surpassed, future perfect. So we passed the grammatical test, okay? And the last test, and I say last because actually these ideas, I think these expressions about further down the road, the icing on the cake, have surpassed, pet peeve, I think some of these phrases and words are strong. And I want to I want to emphasize that we don't need to bring out very strong vocabulary for speaking, okay? Because speaking is more about structure, flow, and giving good ideas. Now, in this case, and usually in my examples, I give strong examples for your development to help you improve. But it's understandable that it is a timed test and it is speaking, you're on the spot. It's not the same like writing. In writing, you should demonstrate your vocabulary knowledge a lot. But in speaking, again, structure, that comparative form, mine is good for this, while that one is not. And some stronger grammatical forms is enough. We don't need the strongest ideas. And I'm also not saying that these ideas are the strongest, but I would say that using words like surpassed, cost effective, costly, pet peeve, further down the road, okay? Um, Littering, the fact that, and literally, those are stronger vocabulary forms. So if you can do it, great, and let's practice. And of course, the most important, like always, is the timing, right? Most important is speaking this in 1 minute, which is what I'm going to do now. While I'm speaking this in 1 minute, everyone, please let's make sure that we focus on the structure, okay? My flow, intonation, and the ideas, the comparative ideas, how I'm doing that, how I'm comparing. All right? But mostly flow and intonation. Here we go. If I had to persuade my apartment council colleague to choose planting the hedge over buying everyone earplugs, I'd make some convincing points. First and most importantly, I'd say that nowadays many citizens are concerned about the environment, so our tenants would really appreciate the fact that it's more environmentally friendly. However, the earplugs could add to the littering problem, since tenants could be tempted to just throw them out. Secondly, I'd say that since it looks green, it would be much more attractive and would provide the extra natural element we've been looking for. Whereas the earplugs would be much more uncomfortable and annoying, since you'd always have to put them on. It could literally become a pet peeve. Last but not least, I think the icing on the cake is that although the hedge could be more costly in the short term, it would end up being more cost effective in the long term. While we'd always have to buy those pesky earplugs, and probably on a weekly basis. So the cost will eventually have surpassed the hedges further down the road. Well, you can see I used up all my time there. Now, I do want to say that I was going a little bit with good flow, or I wanted to maintain good flow, but also clarity. And that's important, everyone. We need to remember that clarity is important. So even the ending there where I kind of emphasized further down the road. I wanted to make sure that I said that clearly. We don't want to seem like we're rushing. And again, everyone, it's very important. This is only an example to illustrate how it can be done, okay? And also to give you ideas. Now, I would say that if you can speak this answer by yourself, you definitely or you'd literally get the highest grade, okay? All right. Well, let's see here. To practice, everyone, I strongly recommend, firstly, reading this example as many times as you can, reading it and understanding it first, then reading it and speaking it. Make sure you can speak it in a minute. This will really develop your flow and your fluency and your intonation, okay? Of course, the ultimate test would be, can you say something similar? Okay, or can you say the exact answer in 1 minute? Okay, that would be great. Now, you don't have to say it word by word, and you shouldn't be saying it from memory. So I recommend that you practice saying at least the ideas or using some of those phrases. For that matter, I'm going to be leaving a link in the description box to this part, okay, everyone? And you will be able to practice this part. And I'm going to leave a link in the description box. You'll be able to see there 5-6 sample, but you also there we have the 7-9 sample. Okay. And yes, let's practice. Let's practice it, everyone. And also, I strongly recommend our library. Our library has many more examples of speaking part 5. Okay. Also, of course, all the speaking sections, the writing sections, the reading sections, listening. Okay. For that reason, I'm going to be leaving at the bottom of the sample question a link to purchase a library pass. Yes. And everyone, discount code CELPIP79. Over 60 exams for $10.99, including present, past, and other CELPIP material. So everyone, let's remember, practice makes perfect.